This little lecture is on crown charges and what does it mean in respect to how do people who extract wood from our crown land, how do they pay for that wood? First of all, let's just kind of get an idea of what is the magnitude of the actual harvest. These numbers are very general. I've just made it average, but generally about 200,000 hectares are harvested per year, representing 22 million meters cubed of wood harvested per year across Ontario's crown land. Crown land, not the private land. And even though that sounds like a lot, the total harvested area is a quarter of 1% of the total forest area we have in this province. So it is remarkably small. And along the way, all the land that is harvested must be renewed to government standards. And the renewal process is not just planting, and we talked about this, but it is a mix of between natural and artificial regeneration. So it isn't just planting trees, but whatever approaches it takes so that we have trees free to grow in the required time limit based on the forest management plan. So approximately 130 million trees are planted annually, and you remember we plant around 2,000 trees per hectare roughly, so that gives you an idea of how many hectares are planted per year. And we seed an additional 22,000 hectares of harvested area. In other words, planes fly over and drop the desired crop seed from the air so that they eventually become a future. In Ontario, along with the harvest, it's important to understand, just as a reminder, that parks and conservation areas is that we have about 9% of the total province represented in parks and conservation areas, and about 12% of the crown land is in parks and conservation areas. So solid contribution across the country for meeting that target from the United Nations of 12% of the land base in this category. It is to note that not every single hectare is accessible, and we have 20% of the province forested. 20% of the land in this province is inaccessible, inoperable, and other reserve type of areas. So it's areas where you cannot realistically harvest. So how do we charge? How does the government charge for the right to harvest wood from crown land? Well, what they do is they charge companies by the meter cube harvested a certain fee, and we're going to look at that stumpage, as it's called, stumpage. Okay, so then for the stumpage, we're going to look at which is called revenue. Is that a lot of people think all the money just goes into one generic pot, but it used to go into one generic pot of money, and then unfortunately the money this money was supposed to have gone to reforestation efforts. Very little of it ever did return back to the forest. Now, under new legislation, the money that is brought in is put into these three pots of money. The first one is the Forest Renewal Trust Fund. So for every dollar put in, X amount of percentage of that dollar goes into a pot of money, which then is doled out for the reforestation or forest renewal effort for the area harvested. The second one is the generic pot is called the Consolidated Revenue Fund of Ontario. And that money, and these dates, don't worry about them, they're just kind of average dates. This money is like for building this college, highways, hospitals, schools, you name it. And that is a significant component. And you can see here at the bottom just the ratio, 100 million, 130 million. And then this 10 million only annually is for the Forest Futures Trust Fund. And what it is for special activities and initiatives companies have taken on to encourage a better forest for tomorrow. Be it genetically enhanced trees, better ways of fighting insects and disease, or fire. So those are the three ways that the 3 pots of money that are allocated for every 1 meter cubed of wood sold in the Crown Forest. Now, to give you an example is just to show you some of the what I've done is I've provided you here some example of. So if we look at, for an example, oops, excuse me. If we look at, there we go, the stumpage matrix example for sawmill hardwood. In other words, good sawmill sized hardwood, grade 1. So it's quite good grade. So so anyone who's harvesting that on Crown land, the minimum stumpage price they have to pay is $1.50 per meter cubed. And remember, how big is a meter cubed? A meter cubed is about one good sized telephone pole is about 1 meter cubed. So they don't pay for bark, anything like that, or defects, but it's 1 meter cubed. So they pay $1.50 for that, and then they pay residual stumpage price, and so, which means depending how good the markets are, if the market is really good, then this residual stumpage price goes up. If it's very poor, their stumpage price is low. So this has a bearing on the market. Minimum stumpage price means no matter what, this is what you're paying for sawmill hardwood grade lumber. So the total charge would be $2.25 for the stumpage. And then on top of that, you have to pay for the Forest Renewal Trust and Forestry Futures Trust. Okay? So remember, so you're going, well, what is the difference between these two? This amount here, Consolidated Revenue Fund, this is for building schools, roads, anything infrastructure that the public needs. This is where this money is going. Meanwhile, the money below for that same meter cube is used in the forest. So the Forest Renewal Trust and Forestry Futures Trust, and this is indicating where it's located, it's saying that for sawmill hardwood, the Forest Renewal Trust charge is, if you harvest 1 meter cubed, you will pay $8 for that one meter cubed for the renewal of that type of forest. You will pay 48 cents to the Forestry Futures Trust. Remember, that's the innovative approaches of dealing with forestry. Okay, and they have under the Futures Trust, Forest Resource Inventory. So all the inventory done across the province by the MNR. Who pays for that? On Crown land, well, the companies pay $2.50 for that per meter cube. And forest management costs for the MNR, they charge $1 for that, just for the whole operation. So they're trying to be cost neutral. So therefore, this is $11.98, $12 you can say is the actual charge for the me see if I can get this right here. So here it's $12 for that. It's $2.25 for that, right? So you're looking at 12 to 14.25 or so is what it costs per meter cubed, right? And remember how many meters cubed are harvested per year? A lot. So there's a significant amount of money that is brought in to help to ensure our forest is successful.